It's not just enough for me anymore to hop into a new game and expect it to feel novel. Like, it just isn't. We've seen a lot of the same stuff that you would see over and over again, like resource collection in survival games, building, combat. Like, it's really rare to come across something that completely refuels that sense of novelty that you had when you first started gaming when you were a kid. Hey, you guys, and welcome to my kind of chaotic room today. The lighting is going to be changing quite a bit because I'm surrounded by trees, and so when the leaves pick up the sun, it changes how the room looks. But beyond that, I wanted to just sit down and talk a little bit about how the way I've seen gaming changes as I've gotten older. And obviously, that's something that's bound to happen. So many different things change as you get older. But it's only hit me recently why it's changed. And that has to do with the idea of the older I get, the more I think about, like, I become introspective and I think about what really matters to me now compared to what mattered to me in the past. So in the past, I mean, think about it. We were like 11-year-old, 12-year-old gamers, doped up on dopamine, quite literally, and just happy to like play whatever we could get our hands on. It was a beautiful thing. And it became kind of an addiction to keep wanting to get that dopamine hit. And so no matter what game we were playing, no matter what genre, cool, we were gaming. But as you get older, you start to notice that that initial sheen kind of wears off. And you start noticing that you meander towards like certain genres or certain things that you really like as you're gaming. So I play a lot of survival games and MMORPGs, and I did play them in the past, but I've realized that there's a reason that those are the games that I gravitate towards. It's not just the dopamine fueled hunger from my teenage years. I mean, like, I'm 30 now. I've been doing this a while. It's not just enough for me anymore to hop into a new game and expect it to feel novel. Like, it just isn't. We've seen a lot of the same stuff that you would see over and over again, like resource collection in survival games, building, combat. Like, it's really rare to come across something that completely refuels that sense of novelty that you had when you first started gaming when you were a kid. And of course, that applies to a lot of other things in life too. I mean, how many things were novel when we were kids that just aren't anymore because we hadn't experienced them before? Like everything, right? Food, music, movies, like so many different things. But I've realized that there seem to be like two aspects of games, maybe three, that keep me hooked on games in particular. Let's start with an MMO, for example. I know the channel is mostly survival games now, but I did start this channel based around MMORPGs. I used to be one of those sweaty MMORPG players when I was a teenager. I'm not ashamed to say. I was the director of a pretty big guild in Perfect World International. I led PvP territory wars. I did all that stuff. I was online all the time. I was constantly online. And I thought that I just liked doing that. I thought that that was it, but I didn't realize what I actually enjoyed was how much I was capable of changing a persistent world that's online. Like, that was the hook. That was the loop. And I didn't realize it at the time because I was just so into that game, thinking it was just that I just liked doing the whole PvP thing and I liked being competitive and I just liked the game. But no, what it was is that I was able to change the world based on my actions in the game. Like, actually change it. The map, the layout of the map changed depending on if my guild won or lost a territory war. Okay, so that's one example of like persistent living worlds that like hooked me in. So then when you think about survival games, like most of them have building and progression with base building and everything. That's another example of going into a virtual world and through your actions changing that persistent world. Okay, so that's number 2 for living persistent worlds that you can actually impact and change. I guess I'm just one of those people who, and it's not like things don't change enough in my life. Like I moved to a farm and started raising horses. I can change things in my own life, so it's not like I'm missing that. I think my brain, just however it's wired, really likes the idea of impacting a virtual world without having to spend 5 hours a day doing all the work that I do around my farm physically. So it's more of like a mental success, I guess. Point being, I really like living persistent feeling worlds that can change. So when I open up an MMORPG, let's just take New World for example. When I play New World, I can level up and get through it fine, but it doesn't have that element of changing the world. Really, the only way you can change anything in New World is by winning territory wars. But the problem is that you realize that doesn't really change much. There's no huge impact from that. It just happens. It's going on in the background always. And I just didn't get that same feeling. I mean, it's the same with things like Elder Scrolls Online. The only thing I feel like I could actually change in that world would be if I became emperor, and I'm not about to go grind in the PvP zone to become emperor and still really have no impact on the greater game space. But you jump into a survival game and every little thing you do has an impact. You can see your base being built in an open world on a map that completely changes the way that world functions. You can help people, you can harm people by what you do at your base. You know, you can craft things for people at your base. You can offer them shelter if there's some crazy event going on in that world. And on the flip side, you can go rip their base down if it's a PvP server or PvP game or something like that. You see what I mean, though? It's all about feeling like you're having an impact on something. And not every genre and not every game can do that. So like, what could I use as an example? I guess I could talk about ArcheAge for a minute, because ArcheAge was another MMORPG that had open world housing where it was competitive. So like there was scarcity created because there were only so many game plots that you could plop your house down on, and you would have to rush to the land plot areas and like claim your property that you wanted to have. And sometimes you wouldn't get the property and you would have to wait for someone to forget to pay their taxes, and then the property would be back up on the market again, or that that housing spot would be back and ready for you to go claim it. So I like the idea of competition and I like the idea of scarcity when I play MMORPGs. Survival games already do a really good job of providing scarcity because basically there's supposed to be a struggle until you hit a certain point. But I cannot play MMOs just to level up through them and hit the end game anymore. There has to be some greater long-term feeling of progression, or else like it just doesn't do it for me. It's the same with survival games. If the idea of the survival game is just to survive and make your way through the story, then cool, I'll play that as a one-off experience, but I'm probably not going to replay the game if there isn't a grander progression loop or a bigger goal to accomplish. I've learned that as I've gotten older, those are the things that I tend to flock to. And then of course there's the last element. I actually created a separate channel for this element of things. It's mysteries and getting into the unexplored. I think games are great vessels for exploration and kind of scratching that itch to find something unknown to you as a person. I mean, tons of other people have probably already experienced what you've experienced in a game, but you can still hold on to that feeling of discovering something for yourself for the first time. So I created a mystery channel called Whispabird, where I get into detective and adventure games where you try and solve mysteries and puzzles and challenge that part of your brain, pique the curiosity that often goes missing in the modern world because everything is already laid out for us. There are game guides everywhere. There are maps everywhere. There are YouTube videos showing pretty much every location on Earth that's worth visiting. There's not much left to explore that's accessible to normal people like me. Like, I'm not like an Indiana Jones type person that has funding to go to some crazy temple in South America and look for a golden relic and go through the whole, rolling ball in the temple thing. That's just not an option for people like me. I can't go to the depths of the Mariana Trench and explore down there because I don't have funding to do all that oceanographic stuff. I just don't have the funding. So I think games are a great way to, as I said, scratch that itch of exploration. In my real world day-to-day, I spend a pretty good chunk of my time trying to solve treasure hunts. And I'm not talking about like legendary, the Atocha, the Spanish treasure ships. I'm not talking about stuff like that. I'm talking about puzzles that people like me make and then put those puzzles out into the world. And if you solve the puzzle correctly and you go to the right location, you can dig up a treasure. And I've actually won a few of these. I've won some gold, I've won some money, I've won little keepsakes. I dug up a necklace that I wear all the time. I'm not wearing it now though. I'm wearing my horse necklace, but I have this really pretty gemstone that I dug up out of the ground in Ohio because I followed the clues correctly. And I think it's so cool that I was the first and only person to be able to do that. So like stuff like that is my Indiana Jones kind of moments. And I think games facilitate those kind of moments really well. So when I was younger, I was into all of these things. I just didn't understand why. But introspection and gaining a little bit of age and wisdom kind of lets you sit down and think, hey, what do I really like about games? Like, what keeps me coming back to these games? I don't play shooters. I don't really play arcade games. Every now and then I'll play like an RPG because I really enjoy story elements, but I'm not into things that you just play once and then you put down. I really like that longer persistence and the idea, as I said, of being in a living world along with mystery. So hey, if anyone wants to make like a mystery survival game where it's like constantly updating places you can find and discover based on clues, oh my gosh, I would be so down. I would never leave my desk. That's just kind of what I wanted to talk about, how as we get older, we realize what we love about particular types of games, and I almost feel like we hone in on them while also realizing why certain games don't hit the same anymore. MMORPG genre, I'm looking at you because right now none of you are offering that open world housing experience and changing the world drastically kind of thing that I'm looking for. I think Ashes of Creation might be the only upcoming MMO that's even thinking of offering open world housing in the form of freeholds. Oh, Fractured Online is going to do the whole MMO building thing again, but that's way like in the future. They're just starting to get back into the swing of development again. But Ashes of Creation I did buy into because of that open world element, and I think you're as a player you will be able to impact the world quite a bit in Ashes of Creation, so I have bought into that. And of course I'm going to continue covering all of the really awesome survival games that we have available to us because they do offer me those elements that I love, which is changing a persistent and living world through building or interaction or physically terraforming the landscape and changing the world. Heck, Farming Simulator lets you do stuff like that. You can completely change a map over the long term depending on what your goals are in that game. So even simulator games scratch that itch for me. So there we go. That's what keeps me coming back to games. And I think it's interesting how games always get me thinking about stuff like this. That is my casual chat for the day. Minimal editing, I hope you guys don't mind. Sometimes it's nice to just sit down and talk to the camera. That's what YouTube is for, right? Not everything has to have flashy gaming content with it. But anyway, I think that's it for me. I hope the crazy sunlight hasn't caused too much weird looks with the lighting. Hopefully I don't look like I'm just a flashing danger sign. Oh hey, this is really cool. You can actually see the leaves up here. The leaves out one of my windows. You can see them reflecting, or not reflecting, what's the word I'm looking for? The sunlight is going through them because they're semi-transparent. They're translucent, that's the word. Yeah. Okay. All right, so coming up next, I'm gonna have a Crosswind video on Friday because there's gonna be a developer blog, and then I'm gonna be getting into some other games that I was covering before I took my burnout break. So that is it for me. I'm curious if you have dug into like what makes you tick as far as games go. Have you identified those things that you love about games and that just make sense to you when you sit down to start up a game? Like my open world, persistent living world kind of stuff. So that is it for me, guys. I hope you are enjoying your games, as always, and I will see you all in the next video. Don't forget to check out my Grounded playthrough. It's continuing. And it's bingeable because there are so many episodes. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it if you're into Grounded. So yeah, that's it. Bye.